Good afternoon, everybody. I wanted to hop on here real quick, and I told a lot of you on my channel this past week that I'd do another Amish Q&A, but this one here is more of a testimony, and I want you to say hi to Ruth Miller. She will be sharing some testimony, and so I want to start out by just asking her a few questions as you guys start hopping on here. So Ruth Miller is who I got with me, and you grew up, a more of conservative Mennonite or Amish?
It was conservative Mennonite, very conservative Mennonite.
Now, were there a lot of rules that you guys had to follow as well, like the regular Amish in that community?
Well, not so much with the church, but mine was more my mom was very religious, and so was my dad, but I lived a very sheltered life, and they were very, very protective as far as they didn't want me out in the public.
So now, as far as the family, you guys were a pretty big family, or?
There was seven children. I have 6 brothers. There's 4 that are older, and then it's me, and then 2 younger brothers.
So where exactly was your community based out of growing up?
I grew up in Millersburg, Ohio, which is, it was very close to Saltillo.
Now on the Amish farm, you said you had 6 brothers. So growing up, did you have to help at all, like on a farm, or would you say you were mainly in the house a lot, helping with cooking, cleaning, making clothes, things like that?
Yes, I was in the house. I helped Mom. She would do a lot of the cooking. I did learn how to do cook a few things, but she did most of that. She taught me how to sew, so I'm a pretty good seamstress, and we did a few quilts, and we were very much into sewing, crafty, that kind of thing. But I also helped in the garden. We had a huge garden, so I just will never forget those endless rows of hoeing sweet corn.
Now, some of those things that you learned being in the house and helping and gardening and things like that. Now, do you still keep any of that up today?
Not if I can help it. Some of those things you never lose. I don't especially enjoy cooking. I do once in a while. It's not that I can't, because I can make a pretty good pie. I can make a pretty good Amish meal. But I would prefer to do some other things instead.
Mm-hmm.
As far as sewing, I got rid of my sewing machine, and I really do not miss that at all.
Don't miss the whole sewing and making clothes?
Oh, I do not miss that.
Now, did you have to help at all? I know you had older brothers. I know my community, sometimes the women had to go help in the fields. Did you actually have a horse at all at any time growing up, or were you guys more modern, like conservative?
Yes, we were more modern. We did have...
All righty, we're back. I had a phone call coming in there.
So the horses were pets. But we did have, my dad farmed, and we used tractors. And yes, I did help throw hay bales sometimes when they were in a pinch, and they really needed me. But it wasn't as much. My place was mostly in the house, laundry, that kind of stuff.
You basically stuck, because you had older brothers, you were mainly sticking with the womanly duties in the house and helping Mom and stuff like that then.
Yes.
Now, also in your community, I know it was obviously more liberal, more modern than my community where I come from. And so now, as far as when you got up there to dating age, did you start dating, and also did you get married in the Amish then before you left?
Yes, I started dating. I had my first boyfriend when I turned 17, was with him for 4 years, and then realized that that's not what I wanted. And so then I was single for several years, and then I got married when I just turned 25. And yes, we had a conservative Mennonite wedding. I did not have a long, I mean, my wedding dress was homemade, and it didn't touch the floor. It was very conservative.
So you were married Amish, and now once you were married, did you have kids and all that before you and your husband left?
Yes, we were married. It was right about 20 years when we left. We have 5 daughters, and it's really when the girls started asking questions. That's really when I started thinking about why we do what we do. Like, why did I pull my hair back? Why did I have long hair and wear a covering and so forth? And that's when I really realized that I had no words to explain it to my girls. It was just, we do it because that's how we always did it, and we shouldn't change. One of the things that my mom was really strong on was we shouldn't change. She used the same dress pattern. She combed her hair the same way. She did everything. She looked very much at 86. That's how old she was when she passed. She looked her dress very much the same way that she did when she was 19 and 20. That's how old she was when they got married.
So a lot of the things when you kind of had questions of why they do what they do, would you say that they just mainly wanted you to just keep following it, don't ask questions? I know my old order community was that way. So now, if you were curious and you did have those questions, would they just say, well, we don't ask questions, we just follow the tradition?
Sometimes, a lot of things that I heard from my mom when I would ask questions is, well, this is what Jesus wants us to do, and this is what we're going to do. And that was the end of it. She didn't give me a why. It was just, it's what Jesus wants us to do.
That's usually how they want you to stay in that and not question it. And they'd want to say that's what Jesus wants you to do, but they can't necessarily go to an actual Bible verse to back up
right
what they do. Now, I saw a Harold on here. He just said, do the Amish women get their hair cut? Did you ever?
No.
They just don't do that.
No, they do not do that. We were married about 20 years when we actually left, and that was the first that I just remember one Sunday I was done. I took my covering off and I started wearing my hair down, and then it was soon after that is when I got them, trimmed a little bit, and they kind of got shorter and shorter. But no, growing up, that was absolutely forbidden.
Also, what I want to dive into a little bit is in my old order community, I was just curious if yours were similar about, there was no education as far as sex education or anything. It was never a discussion. So like when me and my brothers, we would get up there to teenage years, 14, 15, you start having the hormones and it just wasn't talked about. We couldn't understand why our body was changing in any way like that. You being a woman, was that even discussed in your more liberal community at all? Was it a discussion?
No. The sex education that I got was from it started with my oldest brother, and as my body started developing, he would be very hands-on, and he wanted to see everything. He wanted to touch, he wanted to feel, and I honestly did not know that it was wrong. I didn't know any better. And so, plus he was a lot older than I was. So it was very much instilled in me, whatever the boys want, they get. And that is just, I didn't know any different. So he's the one, and basically what he told me is, when you start dating, don't let any guy get you drunk. Don't get drunk on a date, because if you get drunk on a date, that is when bad things happen and you just really do not want to get pregnant. So that's pretty much my education as far as anybody talking to me about it.
So they would talk a little bit about awareness. If you got drunk, there's going to be some consequences. That's when you can get taken advantage of, basically. So there was a little bit there that they would discuss, but they wouldn't really go into depth. It sounds like more like the old order Amish, where they really didn't want to make it a discussion about consequences and diseases that may come along with sex acts. So I was just curious. It sounds like they really didn't go into depth, though, to explain why your hormones may be changing and why things happen like that to your body.
Oh no, the education I got was from my oldest brother, and that was a little awkward, but yeah, that's
Your oldest brother had to explain that to you, not your mom and dad?
Oh no, my mom and dad didn't. They didn't say anything.
Really?
There was nothing from them.
Well, while we're talking about this, I've had a lot of people from conservative communities and also old order community, and along with my own Amish community, of people that contacted me in just the last 6 months of things that has taken place that the Amish kind of shove under the rug, so to speak, where they say, hey, we take care of these things. We don't need law enforcement. We don't need the law to step in. We have discipline in the church. We take care of these issues ourselves. So therefore, they look good from the outside. They look like good religious people. So therefore, law enforcement usually just kind of, okay, well, they got this. They'll take care of it. So I am hearing, not only my own father was abusive, mentally and physically to our mother, but also we are so many stories coming out where there was sexual abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse. I want to kind of touch up on that. Did you experience any of that, physical abuse, sexual abuse yourself as a person?
Yes, I did. So my earliest memory is when I was about probably 5, 6. I got raped by one of the brothers, and this was it was so traumatic that I blocked it in my mind. But growing up, it was not unusual. There was a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of touching, feeling, just a lot of that. And it wasn't until I must have been in my early 40s that some of these things actually started coming back to me, and I actually started remembering and talking about it and trying to search for answers and to get the help that I needed.
So you would say that you just kind of had to put up with it, and you kind of believed that it might have been right for them to touch you in areas that shouldn't have been touched? You thought that was okay?
Yes, I had no idea that it was wrong.
So yeah, that kind of the same stories I'm hearing out of some of the other communities where, it's either Mennonite or Old Order Amish, or there's a lot of those people that's contacting me that are having the similar issues to where they sometimes have fear that they put into the brothers or even sisters, both. I've heard both stories. And where there's like a fear tactic where, hey, you just don't ask questions. They wire them to make them feel like it's actually normal for why they're doing those things to you. So would you say that you kind of felt at that age when it started happening that was just normal?
Yes. And this continued. This continued until I was in my early 20s. And I've had people ask me, why didn't you say no or stop or something like that? But, like I said before, it was something that my older brothers, they were quite a bit older, and I honestly did not know that I could say no or stop. By the time I was 20, I could have probably protected myself, but it must have been so instilled in me as a young girl that I am supposed to be submissive that I did not realize that I had a voice, I didn't realize that I could say no.
There's many women that go through this, and what the reason I like to talk about these kind of issues and share testimonies from ex-Amish women, similar to Ruth here, and it is to make awareness and educate people and let them know that these things do happen in Mennonites, conservative Amish, old order Amish, Schwarzentuber Amish. These things do happen, and I think it's a very good thing to make awareness and let people know, because lots of times looking in from the outside, you wouldn't think that would happen with religious groups, people that look like good, loving Christian people. And also the question there, Harold, that you just asked, did you call the cops when your brother was doing that? Now that goes along with what she said. She was thinking, you would thought it was normal. So when you think it's normal, I don't think you probably didn't feel like calling the cops, correct?
No, I had no idea that I could call the cops or even talk about it. And like I said, I was the only girl, so I didn't have sisters to talk it over with. I did not have close friends. I was very, very sheltered, and very much, sheltered as far as not out in the community much, but as far as in my own family, I was not protected. I was not sheltered.
What really breaks my heart is a lot of the people that's contacted me is that they just had to deal with it. There was no resources. There was no, there was a lot of brainwashing as well, to where if you leave or you say something, well, you can go to hell. You just have to do and submit, especially the women. That's what I want to focus on, is how the women get treated differently than men. The women, as far as my community especially, I know that the women, the Old Testament, they practice the Old Testament law about the women have no authority. The women have no voice. And so when you practice that, you are silencing the women, and they have really no voice in the church. They have no voice in the home. And now if something starts happening with the women in the home and it starts leaking out, maybe they get some wind of it and they ask the husband. If the husband denies it and says no, they're going to believe the husband. So I just really like to expose some light, put some light on those issues, because the women are very well pushed to the side and they're sheltered. They really don't have any voice. So therefore, what happens is it gets shoved under the rug and they believe the man. So even if there's like physical abuse or sexual abuse, it simply gets shoved under the rug because they believe the man. And let's just say that it does come to light and the husband does admit to it. What the churches usually do in Mennonite and conservative Amish, they forgive. You confess your sins to the church, then they forgive you, and they just simply move on. So if you don't have a repentant heart, what happens? You're going to stay in that abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, whatever you may be doing. So there's no real consequences. So now, leading up to you leaving, how did all that work out with once you left? You and your husband and kids left, or was it just you and your husband?
No, we started going to a church in town, and that is actually when I realized that I actually heard about Jesus all my life, but that I actually realized that there was a difference between being religious and having a relationship with God. Mm-hmm. And I realized that Jesus, I also knew that he died on the cross. I knew that he would save us. But at the same time, there was so much doing and dressing the right way and so forth that I really didn't make that connection until I was in my 40s. And my husband and I, we left and we went to this church in town that was not a Mennonite church. And it was so interesting because the light all at once, it just like my eyes were opened, and it was just, the feeling, it was just so amazing, and it was so different. But in saying that, then what happened is, so I had to like rewire, and my brain, or my thought pattern was completely different. So in order to break free from the Amish traditions and the way of thinking, it's like you have to rewire your brain. And in order to do that, that takes a lot of work. And in order to do that, you really have to want to do it. So in my situation, the more that I was aware of what was going on and what was actually the truth, and I was growing, I realized my husband and I were not on the same page at all. I also realized I was going, a little bit before that, I went through a really bad time of depression. And I was so depressed because it just felt so black. I was in that black hole, and it just felt so depressing and so dark. And I knew I needed help, but I did not know where to get this help. I had tried talking to my parents, and at that point in time, I let them know what had happened. Well, they didn't believe me. It was kind of, then my husband didn't believe me, and all of this caused a lot of depression. So I was very, very depressed. And I was at the point where I actually had pills ready. I was ready to overdose because I was just so tired of living. I couldn't live in that dark hole anymore. I couldn't live with all the lying. I just couldn't live like that. Then all at once, it was like a picture. I mean, I had these 5 beautiful girls, and I knew that I had to be strong, and I needed to get them out of this situation. And the more I tried to talk to my husband about it, he just shut me up, and he got pretty aggressive. And so I ended up thinking, okay, but growing up, I mean, in the church that we went to, it was very much, you don't get a divorce. You're married for life. And I was also a stay-at-home mom, and I homeschooled the girls. And so I had been not working outside of the home for 23 years. So I needed to have a plan, and I knew that I needed, excuse me, to get a little bit of education so that I could get a job, that I could support myself, and I knew there was no question the girls were going with me whenever I would leave. So it took me 5 years until I had enough courage, plan. I had saved some money and talked to an attorney about getting a divorce, because I knew that I needed child support, spousal support in order to survive. There was no way I could totally support the girls on my own with a $10 an hour job. So, and that's pretty much where it came in. I mean, there was one night when, and during those 5 years, it wasn't like I just gave up on my marriage. I tried. We were separated for a little while, 6 months, and then decided to give it another try, and went for marriage counseling, and it kept going until the counselor looked at me and she said, "Ruth, he is not going to change unless he really wants to, and at this point in time he is not, and he's just holding me back, and he was very abusive. At this point it was mentally, physically, and spiritually. He was very much religious, and I often had bruises on my arms, and it was from him being so determined to either pray with me or doing things that I just really didn't want to, and he legit would just hold me so tight that I had bruises. But I always covered them up because I knew I couldn't go to my parents because they didn't believe me about my brother. So why would they believe me about what my husband was doing? It's like that's just you just didn't do that. And I knew that I had to be strong and figure it out for myself. And that's very much what I did. I went to school, got some education as far as working with computers, and then I got a job, and when the timing was right, it was one weekend he was especially aggressive, and my girls were really, really terrified. And so we took what we could from our things, and we went and stayed with a friend for 3 weeks until I found an apartment that was available and fit, because there was 6 of us. So, I couldn't just fit in any apartment. So and then we moved into that apartment and just managed to find help. There was a lot of helpful people along the way in my life. I had several really good friends at different points in my life that spoke a lot of life and truth into my life, and I couldn't have done it without them.
Would you say that you would God probably put the right people in your life at the right time, right place to maybe prevent you from taking those pills and overdosing?
Oh yes, very much so. Very much.
But as far as going to your parents, I seen Harold commented there and said, do you still talk to your brother? But if you went to someone like your parents, they probably would not have believed that was true what your brother was doing, correct?
That is correct. It was very much, we don't talk about what happened. That was in the past, and we leave that in the past and we move on. So whenever I was with my family, it was like there was this ginormous elephant in the room, but nobody would talk about it.
And that's how that stuff continues, folks, when it's shoved under the rug and they silence the woman, wife, or daughter. I mean, there's stories that are just so wicked that I'm hearing from others from different communities. And they have a way of literally shoving that under the rug, and then therefore it just continues and continues. The question there that I saw come up about your brother, do you still talk to him? Is he still alive, and have you ever talked to him personally about that?
I did. I did talk to him just about exactly a year ago, and I told him that I forgive him. And then, unfortunately, this fall he had COVID and he passed away. So I actually lost my mom and my brother and my dad in less than 6 months.
Oh, wow. All within 6 months, they all 3 passed away.
Yes.
Wow. So you never really got any, hey, I'm sorry what I done then? Or did you get any kind of remorse out of your brother for doing those things to you? Or was it just nothing?
No. He would just pass it off. And it was, to him, I am not sure that I think he may have chose not to realize how devastating it was and hurtful to me, and just, let's just pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah. That's the issue, I think, for a lot of the communities, old or new. It doesn't matter if it's Mennonite or more conservative. There's really no resources. I look back at my upbringing where if there would have been the right resources, my dad could have gotten a lot of help, and he ended up going to suicide, obviously. But there was really no help except for shunning. So I was kind of curious, Ruth, was there any shunning going on as well, like the old order for your community? And did they push people away when they didn't follow the certain rules?
Well, as far as my family, so it was. There are some that are open, but then there's some of them that they would say, "Oh no, we don't shun you. You're welcome to come around." But then they have these sneaky little ways that they just maybe they don't include you for something that they're doing, or they're saying one thing, but you really know they're thinking something else. And so I guess that in my mind that was still a form of shunning.
Yeah, it's definitely a form of shunning, obviously. But as far as like before you left, did you have you and your husband both where you might have been shunned in any way because you may not have been following any of the traditional things at all? Did you have any trouble with that?
No, the church we went to did not practice that at all.
Okay. But you right now though, after you left, you and your husband are now apart, right? Divorced?
Yes, we're divorced. It's pretty much 7 years that we got divorced.
And you have the kids, and he paid child support, or?
Yes.
Okay.
I had full custody of the girls. What he wanted was, he wanted the house, he wanted stuff, and I wanted the girls, and so that's what I got. I got the girls. We did need to I had to go with an attorney, and basically I had to fight for whatever I got. He owns his own business and does things, let's say a little bit not totally honest. So when he had to give them his income so that they could decide how much child support that he needed to pay, it looked like he really wasn't making very much. So the child support that I got was very much minimal. But I mean, every little bit helped, and I was grateful. I was grateful for that.
Well, would you say you have any regrets at all, or are you happy now with how everything's going so far out here?
Yes. Nobody could pay me enough to go back. I feel so free. I feel happy. I'm just, yeah. I wouldn't, there's no way I would go back.
That's always what I like to hear when somebody gets out of there and is not being set free in Christ and not being living in that bondage. And obviously what you went through, that just breaks my heart because I know there's many more. Only the ones we're hearing we know about, but there's so many that have never been exposed. This stuff is happening everywhere. And it just breaks my heart when I hear, especially when women are so sheltered and they just have no voice, there's no way out, there's no help, there's no resources. And so I know just hearing your story, Ruth, that there's probably many women in a similar situation that they just really have no way out, and I just have to accept it, and I don't ask any questions, and I just keep on keeping on. And it's very heartbreaking because I know a lot of that is happening. So I appreciate you being open about it. What do you do now? You doing anything now as far as work or anything? Or?
Well, right now, my daughter Shania and I are working on starting our own business. We want to do events and like plan events and coordinate and so forth. So it's called Wildflower Events, and we're just about ready to launch. Just have a few more details that we need to iron out, and then we're going to be up and running. And I also have hopes in the very near future to get a house in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I want to do it as a Airbnb so that I have a place that's where my girls live, four of them, and that's where I really enjoy going there, and so those are the two main projects that I'm working on right now.
That's good. At least you got a good future ahead of you, and you're set free. I seen Harold ask again. Ruth looks happy now.
Yes, I am very happy.
Yeah.
Very happy.
At least you don't have to live in bondage, but you seem open to talk about it. Would you say if your mom and dad were still alive today, would you be this open to be able to talk about it?
Well, I was a little hesitant to talk about it too much as long as they were still alive. But I would give anything now to be able to really just go to them and just, as with the courage that I have now and the strength that I have, I would like to really go talk to them and share with them what I actually went through. Mm-hmm. But by the time I was reconnected, my mom she lived 4 months after we reconnected, and I was with her as much as I possibly could be. And at that time, my dad had the beginning stages of Alzheimer's, or dementia. So a lot of the time, it's like we enjoyed being with him, but I did not have the opportunity to really tell him what I went through and share with him.
And you wish you could have had that time to express that when he was still alive, to be able to tell him, hey, this is what I went through, this is what I experienced. And just to be able to, that would have probably been that would have helped you, I would say, probably be able to tell him that.
Yes, because when I did go to them and let them know what happened, I did not have the strength that I do now. And so it was very emotional for me, and yes, I did tell them what happened, but I still let them doubt or let them say, we don't believe you, that kind of thing. Whereas now it's like I would want to go say my piece, tell them what happened, and if they start with the negativity, it's like, okay, this is, your choice, but this is what happened, and I know what happened, and then I could walk away and know that I actually really let them know what happened.
Yeah. You're saying even if you would have got that, hey, I don't believe you, you're probably lying, your brother was saying he didn't do it, and well, therefore we're going to believe him. You're saying it still would have helped you if you'd just been able to tell your father that.
Yes.
To let him know that this was happening.
Yes, that would have helped a lot.
Yeah. Well, folks, I tell you what, there's a lot of these kind of things going on. I've heard stories out of my community that many that don't want to talk about it. They're not ready yet. And I thank you, Ruth, for coming on and sharing your story, your testimony. And is there anything else that you'd like to share that you might have experienced at all before we wrap it up?
I think my main thing is that if there's any women out there or girls, I don't care how old you are, how young you are, if you need help, know that I am a safe person and you can come to me. That is my heart's desire, is to be there for other hurting women and girls who have nobody to talk to. So I think that's what I would like to leave with you yet.
For other girls, if they are in similar situations and dealing with these kind of things, not to think it's normal and keep it in and do nothing, but yet reach out and try to get help. I think that would be number one, because there's a lot of brainwashing with some of the stories I'm hearing anyway, not just yours, to where they really actually get to where the mind games and the brainwashing happens so much that they actually get at a very young age, especially when it starts happening at the ages, 6 through 8, to where they actually believe, this young child believes it's normal. And that's really sad, and you're right. You got to have the resources, the help to be able to go out and talk to somebody, and for you to be willing and to be able to be there to help others that might be going through the same thing. That's wonderful, and we need to have those kind of resources. But when somebody's living in fear and they've been brainwashed and you believe it's normal, sometimes they know it's not normal, and yet they just live in so much fear they don't want to. They know there's going to be consequences. Maybe in the Amish church or at their dad or their brothers, the fear tactic they use makes it to where they just lock up and you're ready to hunker down and never say a word about it. And that's very dangerous because you have to have resources to help in that area. But anyway, you got anything else you want to share or ready to wrap it up?
I don't think so. Did I miss anything?
I
told you earlier.
I think you covered everything, but we can always do it again and you can share some other things some other time. So thank you very much for giving your testimony, Ruth, and you all have a blessed day today. We'll see you.